bulky winter clothing and the big jacket and then the scarf. It's more trouble than it's worth.
Fair enough, but it does keep you warm.
I'd rather be cold than encumbered.
And on that note, we will go to Zach's first turn. He will play a Temple of Triumph. Take a look at the top card. And he will decide what he wants to do with that here momentarily. Jesse did win an Open Series event last year when we were in Baltimore, week 4 of season 1. Got the job done with Mono Black Devotion. Also top 8'd technically the first Open of season 1. We kicked that off at the Season 4 Invitational in Seattle. Top 8 there with White Blue Heroic. And here's a Thoughtseize from Musser, who is also an Open Series champion. Got the job done with Miracles at the Legacy Open at our Season 3 Invitational in New Jersey.
And you can see some of the points of differentiation between White Blue Heroic and White Red Heroic immediately.
2 favorite hoplites, well, those are in both decks. And then the cards are a little bit different here. Ordeal of Perforos, along with a Crowan Skyguard. And then some lands to actually cast those spells. So you're not gonna find, excuse me, battle-wise hoplite here. That's for sure. Now, what does Red bring to the table? Ordeal of Perforos is certainly one. Dragon's Mantle is another. Teamer Battle Rage and Titan Strength are the other ones, and some sideboard cards we'll get to in a little bit here. But maybe just a more explosive deck overall.
Interesting to see the differentiation, though, because White Blue Heroic has been such a popular performer.
Windswept Heath will come down here for Musser. And pass the turn back. Jesse will take a draw step. A Titan Strength is what he's found. And we will go to the skies with the Crowan Skyguard. Now, one thing you're also not going to find here, oddly enough, because there's not as many auras in this particular deck, so you're not going to find a card like Hero of Iros in here. Which might seem a little bit strange because he's playing heroic strategy, so why doesn't he have Hero of Iros? But he's just got other options available to him. So
there's a lot of 1-mana spells available in white and red, and so when you don't have a bunch of enchantments you're trying to discount, it makes that card a little bit less attractive.
Here's our Courser of Crucibles, excuse me, for Musser, as he'll sacrifice 2 Windswept Heaths to get that out. Opting to go with the old school Windswept Heaths.
A fine choice, though I'm not really a stickler on what fetch land you're playing with.
That's where you draw the line?
Well, they're just not, it's not old school enough for me to care either way.
You know they're like 10 years old, right?
Yeah, no, they're actually older than that.
Yeah.
Just saying, this is my line in the sand.
Zach's going to do some targeting, I think, of that Skyguard. Yes, he will. Titan Strength is going to grow that thing up.
And Zach can be pretty aggressive in the upkeep here, doing it because he's picked up a God's Willing, so he can still leave up a mana and get his beat on this turn.
There's a Battlefield Forge after a pretty healthy attack. The follow-up there is favorite hoplite. I'll have to take one to cast it. And even though the deck lists are a little bit different and what cards are in them are a little bit different, the play pattern is still pretty much the same.
Yeah, you got the same deal. And part of the reason that I think Zach has to play with flyers is because without blue in the deck, you lose access to things like Aqueous Form and Stratus Walk. So you need to find other ways to get through blockers. It's a little gully, but you got to do something.
Musser is immediately already under the gun, and he did not find a land with Courser. So all he can do is simply pass the turn back, and his mana base is all sorts of screwed up right now. 2 basic forests and a Temple of Silence means he can't cast a lot of different spells.
And there's no guarantee with the number of lands in his deck that come into play tapped that it's going to matter even if the top card of his deck is a land next turn.
Jesse did keep his card on top pretty quickly with the Titan Strength Scry, so he's going to come into the red zone with both of these creatures. The attack with the favorite hoplite looks a little interesting.
Well, I think Zach can probably deduce that Dan really can't do that much with this amount of mana. The only trick this deck could have in this spot that matters a lot is Murderous Cut. And with a God's Willing in hand, he's got that covered.
Yeah. Well, it's time for Titan Strength. So he's going to size up a little bit bigger. Top card's going to become the bottom one now. A card normally reserved for Tom Ross being cast here by someone else. Pretty underrated card, though, I think.
I think so. I mean, it's going to be Lava Spike for a lot of decks, and if you're doing anything with Heroic, sometimes you can save a creature. Does a lot of good.
Musser is already down to 4, and Jesse's just going to pass the turn back. Siege Rhino is the draw. Take a look at the top card. It's a copy of Read the Bones.
Perfect. Perfect. I mean, if you're going to kill him in this spot, you might as well make it as insulting as possible, you know?
Musser is going to simply pass the turn back. Jesse will draw. Everybody's going to come into the red zone here, and Dan Musser's going to concede the game. Zach Jesse wins game number 1 here over Dan Musser. White-red heroic up again here over Abzan mid-range, and Dan's going to have to fix those mana issues and probably make his deck a little bit lower to the ground with his sideboard.
Though he's got some really good options here. 3 copies of Drown in Sorrow and 3 copies of Glare of Heresy. I imagine we're starting there. 2 copies of Read the Bones, and a Ajani Mentor of Heroes, a Liliana Vest, an Unravel the Aether, a Bioblight, an Utter End, another Tassiger, and a Murderous Cut. Besides the 6 cards I mentioned initially, the Murderous Cut, the Utter End, and the Bioblight are all good options here.
We'll take a look at the other side of things here for Jesse. 2 Wild Slash, 2 copies of Ride Down. Absolutely. 2 Deflecting Palms as well. What else do we have here? You got a Fall of Perforos, I believe. 2 Erases in Johnny's Presence, 2 Ordeal of Heliots, a couple copies of Glare of Heresy too. A Mortal Ardor. Some options that you would not find if it was white-blue heroic. What do we like here?
I think the Ride Down is going to be sweet here. I mean, Dan's definitely in the market to block. Besides that, I think, you know, you might see some Glare of Heresies, although they aren't actually that potent against Dan. He doesn't have that many white permanents. These Johnny's Presence seems very good.
Some options that we do not oftentimes see.
Yeah, for sure.
In these heroic strategies, because again, we're used to seeing white-blue heroic, and normally the card that we think of in this particular matchup is a card like Treasure Cruise.
Exactly, or some counter spells like Stubborn Denial, but Zach going to some different options, and some of those tricks like Ride Down and Deflecting Palm, if you're not anticipating them, they can be incredibly powerful, and I wonder if Zach's gotten some people off guard earlier in the tournament.
I could safely say that if I was playing against this deck, I would not play around Ride Down.
Right.
That's not the card on my radar.
Week 1, when we had our open in New Jersey, Jadine Klomparens had Deflecting Palms in her Jeskai aggro list, and people were getting messed up all day long. I mean, those 2 tricks in particular, if you're not used to playing against red-white strategies, or they're not on your radar, they are going to be tough.
And we'll see if those cards do work their way into the equation here, but while these players finish sideboarding for game number 2, we will talk about Next Level Magic, the 2015 edition, now available both paperback and ebook.
Yeah, and this is the 2015 update, so there's a lot of new content, a lot of new examples. On top of that, this book has been sold out in paper book for nearly a year now, so it's available on paperback and ebook. You can head over to starseedgames.com/NLM to order your copy today. Patrick Chapin, of course, runner-up the world champion, a Pro Tour Hall of Famer, Pro Tour champion in 2014, one of the game's most celebrated players and writers of all time, and this is quite the addition to any Magic player's library.
There is nothing that guy can't do. He has proven that, that's for sure, because he can write, and write some more.
I don't even know how it's possible.
I like writing. Writing is fun.
Yep.
I can't crank out 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 word articles like he does and find time to write a book.
Especially if you asked me to write a couple thousand words a week that was supposed to be entertaining, I feel like I could do that. And if you asked me to write a couple thousand words a week that was supposed to be informative, I think I could do that. But asking me to do both at the same time, week after week at the level that he does it at, it blows my mind. I don't even know how that's possible.
Writing a book is, at least to me, a very daunting task.
Yes.
That's just something that's going to take like a really long time, and you know, what if it just doesn't come together correctly? You just have to like scrap the whole thing or something. I don't know. It just seems like how much time do you put in something like that? I have no idea.
I've been around people that have written some books, and there's 2 answers to that. One is it takes years of just time from start to finish, and then, you know, in a weird way, it's almost like your entire life is leading up to that, because it's so much of your creative energy, so many of your life experiences or information you've accrued goes into it that when you really add it all up, it's an insane sum of time. And Chapin just bangs out thousands of words every single week at a very high level.
Yeah, the new take on Next Level Magic is certainly fantastic, so do pick it up if you do not have it yet, especially the paperback edition, since that hasn't been available for a long time.
Yep. I mean, the ebook is super convenient, but if you like to travel around, read on your couch, fly on planes, having the actual physical copy is very nice.
Musser going to be on the play here for game number 2. Jesse winning game number 1 rather quickly with his white-red heroic strategy. And if we do have time, our backup match again looks to be Jim Davis versus Reed Dude, 2 players that were in our Players Championship. So that'll be a fun one if we can head that way. But for now, we see a rather innovative deck of many this weekend in White-Red Heroic. And currently very easily up a game, though we'll see if Musser can tie things up.
It is interesting to see this deck just because White-Blue Heroic has such a pedigree. You would have to actively want the red cards because you know the base of White-Blue is very good.
Temple of Silence is where Musser starts. Temple of Triumph is where Jesse starts. Take a look at the top card. And we'll see where it'll be going here in just a moment.
And it looks like Jesse did keep a one-lander here, but his first draw step was a mountain. So enough mana to function.
Yeah, kind of a low-to-the-ground deck, too. It doesn't need a lot of mana. And
yeah, a scry land especially, you know, I think that's a totally legitimate keep.
I've convinced myself to keep worse. Here's a mountain.
A ringing endorsement.
Yeah. And a Crone Skyguard. Musser will draw. 2 Temple of Silences to begin things, so his mana is already a little bit better than before, though Courser of Crufix is not something he can play, given these first 2 lands. What do you think we bring Filter lands back in the next set?
Filter lands?
Yeah. Musser just comes down, plays the green-white Filter land, just plays Courser.
I think
not too good.
I think the current standard format is at a critical mass of good dual lands.
All right.
I think we're good. And you want the decks to be 3-color decks more than you want them to be 5-color decks.
Okay. There's a Fabled Hero. Don't see that one very often. But you have to imagine this deck is pretty powerful with Titan Strength and company.
That is a combo.
Yeah.
And I think this card, honestly, is underplayed in the white-blue version. I think it should be played in those decks or in the sideboard more often than it is.
Jesse, assuming his Fabled Hero is not long for this world, is moving it to the graveyard. Though that may not be the case. There's a Bile-Blight, so yes, it is dead.
Every time I've seen someone contemplate whether or not they're going to get fancy with the removal against the white heroic decks, every time they decide to get fancy, it's been a mistake.
Yeah.
They're tapped out, just cast it.
Now here's a fun one, as Musser's going to take a look at the Akroan Linebreaker. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Akroan Linebreaker, it gets +2/+0 and gains Intimidate until end of turn, so it's basically unblockable. As we said,
Digging deep.
different than White-Blue Heroic.
Yeah.
Looks like somebody couldn't afford any Monastery Mentors. Though this card's probably better than we think.
In this deck, it's probably... you see this in Fabled Hero, and Dan's probably feeling like, if I let this guy on tap with anything, I'm going to die.
Yeah. Drowning Sorrow, the top card. Musser might be thinking, what's the worst that could happen? Which is a bad thing to say.
The worst thing is he dies.
Yeah.
Because the shields appear to be down. He doesn't have Murderous mana available. And if Zach is waiting in his upkeep here, that's another bad sign.
Yeah, this turn could be kind of nasty, actually.
It's got Feeder Resistance now as the draw step, too, so he has a lot of insurance, and he can just kind of break up the damage over the course of a couple turns. And Dan can't block.
Yeah. All right, Defiant Strike. That's a lot of damage. So draw. Plains. Put that into play. Hiya. 5 points of unblockable damage. Perhaps this is the kind of threat that you'd like to protect, as now here's Necron Skyguard. In the face of a Drowning Sorrow.
Yeah, there's got to be some really good trick coming here.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, and I'm trying to think of what it is.
So there's no Triton tactics available to this color combination. And now Dan's in this weird spot too where, well, he knows that I'm drawing a Drowning Sorrow and he casts another 1/1, so what's the deal here?
This is definitely a what the heck situation if you're Musser. Why did you do that when you left up just a red mana?
But Dan's hand might be forced. I mean, he might, he's shrugging his shoulders here. He's got to see what it is because I don't think he can work around this any other way.
Maybe he's trying to get him to overthink. Maybe that's the only line of play that Jesse has available. Who knows? Force going to come into play from Corsair. Take a look at the top card. It's a Plains. Yeah, I'm casting Drown Sorrow. Yeah. And it's going to be a Titan Strength. Okay, that'll save it because it does pump the toughness too.
Yep, okay.
It does look a little weird, to say the least, but it is smart.
Yeah, we have our answer.
Yep. Musser going to scry his Plains to the bottom, thanks to Drown in Sorrow. So Jesse not overvaluing the line breaker. Just going to pass the turn back over to Jesse. Will Musser. Jesse will draw a copy of Battlefield Forge.
Talk about the first of SCG Lives. Not overvaluing the Battle Breaker. Neither of us have said that before.
There's a lot of things we haven't said before today.
Yeah.
Defiant Strike. Going to target the Sky Guard. Here's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. It'll become the bottom card. In comes the Sky Guard into the red zone for 4 points of damage. Musser's going to go down to 13, but Jesse's got a long way to go.
So, you know, if you look at the differences between white-red and white-blue, a lot of the red and blue cards feel like they're interchangeable to me. A card that does not feel interchangeable to me is Stubborn Denial. That's
Sure.
a big cost, I think, for not playing blue in the deck. And I think post-board, it's going to be problematic for Jesse over time here.
Yeah, the big question, right, when you're making the switch is, what am I getting when I'm making the switch from blue to red, excuse me. And the cards he's missing out on, well, we know they're all pretty good. Battle-wise Hoplite, along with Stubborn Denial and Ordeal of Thassa.
Yeah.
All those cards are pretty good. Now, are the red cards that he is gaining, are those better? Maybe in certain metagames. Tough to say. I mean, he is 7-0.
Yeah, no, I'm not definitely not saying this to dismiss what he's doing. He's
Yeah.
off to a very good start here. He's up a game in this match, but
There's a feat of resistance to counter the Glare of Heresy.
I see this end hostilities in Dan's hand, and in this spot, I feel like it's going to be tough for Zach to beat it.
Yeah, we can't forget about Treasure Cruise, too.
Yeah.
Because they play such a big role against Opson mid-range and other decks like this after sideboard to be able to keep up with them. Or I'm not sure he'll be able to do that otherwise. Here comes the Corsair. There's end hostilities. Let's restart things. Except for Dan isn't restarting at all. He's in a good spot.
Murderous Cut on the top of the deck. Much more powerful draw steps on the average.
And Jesse will pass the turn back. Musser will draw. Driving Sorrow in hand as well. Little draw go action here between these two players. That'll change things.
Found something to do.
Life totals were 15 and 12, and, well, they still are. They're just in Musser's favor now. Musser going to untap those 4 lands he used for the Siege Rhino and take a draw step here. Going to crash in with the Rhino. There are a lot of nice things about Siege Rhino, of course, and drawing a second one is better than the first.
They come in pairs.
They sure do.
It's adorable.
It is very tough to beat. Here's a favorite Hoplite. Pass the turn back. Musser will draw. Looks like he's going to play a Thought Seize to clear the path perhaps for this Murderous Cut. Maybe pick up some information too. Jesse going to play Defiant Strike. And says, that's fine. I don't care about that. I care about the protection spell you might try to use. And Jesse's not going to show him any more cards and will concede the game. So Dan Musser is going to win game number 2 here over Zach Jesse. And that means we're going to head to a third one as Abzan mid-range and White-Red Heroic battle it out at 7-0.
The white-red deck, a bit of an odd duck.
But you can tell what he's going for, which
Oh,
is just some really punishing draws. And I imagine a lot of the wins, or at least a relevant number of the wins, have come off the back of players not expecting what Jesse's doing, as well as teamer battle range.
You kill very fast, and this deck is also equipped to ignore blockers.
Yeah.
In much of the way that white-blue heroic is, but you don't have to play with the junky enchantments. You just play some heroic flyers and take it from there.
To Musser's credit, he does have a lot of removal in his deck after sideboard, and he's able to really lower the curve on things.
Yes. No, that's really important. I mean, it's the same deal against white-blue heroic. When you're slow out of the gates, when your removal isn't online until turn 3, when you can't chain together multiple spells in one turn. It's very hard to beat this deck.
But now Musser's got to come back against Jesse on the play. So that's the big question if he can do that, because we saw in the first game, his start was pretty poor. He just got out of the gates really slowly. And this deck can capitalize on that. So we talked about a big announcement at the beginning of the day. And we'll talk about it again here very quickly before game number 3. Star City Games is headed overseas, my friend.
I know you and I were in the room working on our really bad British accents for this announcement, but we decided to leave those at home.
Hello.
Couldn't help yourself. We are coming to London August 14th and 16th. We'll be covering this Grand Prix and hosting it, running it, all that good stuff. You and I will be in the booth. The format will be standard. We don't have a lot of information right now beyond that. We're still got our hands full with Grand Prix Miami and all the rest of the Open Invitational schedule, but we got this confirmed this week, and we are very excited about it.
Hopefully we'll see you there August 14th through the 16th, and I will not bring my terrible English accent along with me.
Or you will work harder on it before the event. Either one's fine.
2 options.
Right. You just got to pick one.
If I work on it harder, you have to do it with me.
Okay.
Yes. That's all it takes. That makes me happy.
Dial up Rich Hagon, maybe?
Perhaps.
Get the tutorial?
Perhaps. My English accent's really bad.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
It's really bad. As are all of my other accents. But I just wish that I was good at them. That's all.
It'd be nice.
I would, okay, you have to pick one. For some reason, I think I already know your answer, but you get to have an English accent or a Boston accent.
Is that a trick question? Obviously English.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
What kind of question is that?
I want a Boston accent really bad.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's sweet. You ever seen Good Will Hunting? Hello?
I have seen Good Will Hunting.
Great movie, great accent.
Okay.
I wish I had it. The one accent I don't ever want, New York. Oh, I don't want that one.
Having an English accent just lends an air of credibility to everything that you say. That's why I would take that one.
Okay. I like the Boston accent because you just come off as a jerk.
Sure.
I like that one.
It's just hard to understand you sometimes, you know?
That's
That's
true.
what I consider to be the biggest cost.
That's also true. I'm a jerk. I'll beat you up. A Temple of Triumph to start things off. Musser will draw. Temple of Malady. Both players a little scry action open up game number 3. Jesse's draw looked to be a Dragon Mantle. Here is a Crone Skyguard. To the skies we go. Musser will draw.
It's a lot tougher for Dan when he's on the draw because you feel like having double black and Bile Blight is really important and hard to do. It looks like he's at least got step 1.
He's got step 2 as well. So he's able to get the Skyguard right off the table thanks to Caves of Koilos and Bile Blight.
Not an easy thing for his deck to do, but very important for him to do it right there.
There is a mountain. Ah, yes. The line breaker.
Constructed All-Star.
Can kill you at a moment's notice, honestly, in this deck. But Drown Sorrow is not going to allow that to happen. And I like Musser's play here. Just don't get creative with your removal. Don't try to get 2 cards with Drown Sorrow. Just get those creatures off the table.
Eventually, if Dan keeps making these trades, the game gets to a spot where Zach's got nothing or very little in play and nothing or very little in his hand, and Dan has real constructed Magic cards.
Yeah.
And that's all that Dan's got to play this game for.
There's just no need to get too fancy. Keep that life total high, work it so that, as you mentioned, you've got great cards to draw. As we saw in game number 2, he just overpowered him with his deck.
Yeah.
Siege Rhino and friends.
He's just got to not get tripped up here, The exchange he's got to avoid is where it's his entire turn committed to a removal spell, where if Zach has God's Willing or something else to mess it up, Dan falls behind.
Caves of Koilos. That's land number 4. Musser looking at a copy of Drown in Sorrow in his hand, but not very good given the situation, so all I can do is pass the turn back over to Jesse, who will draw.
That's the tough part about the removal like Drown in Sorrow and the 1 mana shock type effects. They have this very specific window of being good. They can be quite powerful, but they are time sensitive.
We're going to pump up the jam a little bit. Pass priority here is an utter end. Or as you like to call it.
Full retail.
Yeah.
You are paying the cost.
Yeah. No discount there.
But it does what it does. You get what it says on the card.
Hey.
Something's dead.
Feat of Resistance counters the utter end, but Musser's draw step was a favorable one. Looked like it was a copy of Glare of Heresy. And these are the kind of exchanges that he wants to make.
Just run Zach out. Or get to a spot where they're top decking and Zach's deck is full of 1-2s and 2-2s. And Dan's got Planeswalkers and Siege Rhinos and End Hostilities.
Zach will draw. Fabled Hero. Has a copy of the old Ride Down in hand. There is the line breaker yet again. I'll just pass the turn back. Siege Rhino the draw here for Musser. One of those cards is better than the other.
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, Siege Rhino is more powerful, but I think that if Dan taps out for Siege Rhino here, there's some risk of it not really doing very much.
Sure.
You might see Dan just Drown in Sorrow again this turn to try to keep the board clean.
I'm fine with that plan, but Musser looks like he's going to go with the Rhino.
I think this is fine too.
So we'll head back Jesse's way. Temple of Triumph the draw here for Zach. He'll play that to start. Take a look at the top card. That facial expression means he needs a little bit of help. His top card goes to the bottom. Here is the attack. You sniff out that Ride Down, Dan?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it could easily be Defiant Strike as well.
Sure.
So I think there's a good chance there that Dan just says no blocks. Because if it is Defiant Strike, Zach's probably going to cast it anyway.
Sure. Take a draw. Hiya! In comes the Rhino. Now a Drown in Sorrow. That means Zach's going to lose the Squadron.
That would have been a really good spot for Titan Strength.
Yep.
But no such luck.
And looks like Dan's going to keep his card on top. And just pass the turn back. Battlefield Forge was the draw, so it'll just come into play now. We'll head back Musser's way. Musser will quickly draw. Remember, he did keep his card on top very quickly. It's a copy of Courser.
Another blocker, another attacker, some source of life gain.
Murder's cut on top.
Not the most powerful draw at this stage, but does plug up some holes.
Yeah. I like the way that Musser has played this game basically every turn.
Yeah.
As you see, Zach Jess is going to concede the game. He's just done a nice job of keeping everything off of the table as much as possible. Don't take any necessary points of damage and kill stuff when the door's open.
He understands exactly what matters in the matchup. You know, he took a good strategic line of play there, made sure Zach was never in a position to untap with something in play, with mana available, unless Dan was trying to chain together removal through 2 turns.